Hello, my name is Calvin and I'm going to do a lesson for stage 2. The outcome is HS2 HIS01. Explains how people lived in the past, how navigation connected the world and what life was like in the Sydney Cove penal settlement using sources as evidence. The focus area is history uses sources to construct narratives of the past. And the content point is compare journeys and reasons for significant voyages of global navigation. The learning intention of the lesson. Students are going to learn who the Polynesians are, how they travelled across the Pacific Ocean and why their voyages were significant. The success criteria. Students will be successful when they can explain who the Polynesians were and how they travelled across the ocean, explain why their voyages were significant, use resources such as maps to interpret information and support their ideas, and compare different significant voyages. So, hello Year 3. Today we're going to answer the question, how were Polynesian navigators able to travel across the Pacific Ocean and why were their voyages significant? So, today we're going to become historians ourselves and investigate this question about one of history's greatest voyages. But before we get into the fun stuff, I'm going to see what you guys already know about the subject. We're going to see if you know what some of these words on the board mean. Who can tell me what Polynesia means? How about Polynesian? Yes. Polynesia is a big group of islands in the Pacific Ocean, and there are over 1,000 of them. Some of them you may have heard of, some of them you may have even been to. Hawaii, New Zealand, Samoa, Tahiti. Put your hand up if you've been to any of these islands. Great, you guys have all been to Polynesia. And Polynesians are the people who come from these islands and the peoples whose ancestors come from these islands. Today we're going to learn how the Polynesians travelled around the oceans and islands a long time ago. Does anybody know what navigation means? Okay, navigation is how explorers and sailors find their way around the ocean and across the ocean. But before people had phones or maps or GPS, they had to use clues from nature to navigate across the ocean. They had to use the stars, they used ocean swells as clues to guide their way. We will soon learn how the Polynesians navigated using these clues and went from island to island. Does anyone know what a voyage is? How about a journey? Yes, good, that's right. A voyage is just like a journey. It is a long trip, usually across the ocean. Can anyone use voyage in a sentence for me? Yes, thank you guys. Great job. Now, the Pacific Ocean is the biggest ocean in the world, and we are on it here in Australia on the East Coast. If you go to the beach in Sydney, you will be seeing the Pacific Ocean. Polynesia, which we are learning about, is also in the Pacific Ocean. So Polynesia and Australia share the same ocean. If you look on this classroom map, who can point to the Pacific Ocean for me? Good, thank you. Yes, there it is. Now I'm sure a lot of you guys know what this next word means. You may have even been on one. Canoe, who can tell me what canoe means? Put your hand up if you've been on a canoe. Great. It is a small boat that you use and you paddle with oars, not a motor. Polynesians use special wooden canoes and sails to navigate and go on voyages. They paddled with wooden paddles and used the wind to sail. They carried everything they needed in these canoes: people, food, water, even animals. Next word. Can anyone tell me what ocean swells or ocean currents are? Thank you. Yeah. Ocean swells are just big waves that move across the ocean, and currents are part of the ocean that move like a river. Polynesian sailors knew about different swells and currents and could feel them rocking and moving them underneath their canoes. The swells and currents would help them move along in the ocean and guide them from island to island, and it helped them figure out where they were in the Pacific Ocean. These are the natural clues they were using instead of maps, instead of GPS. Now, who can pick one of these words on the board, please, and use it in a sentence for me? Thank you. Yep. Great. I'm glad we all have learned some new words today. So, who has used a map before and why? Okay, wow. Who can tell me what a map is used for? Good. Maps. Just like what Tom said, maps are used to show where things are, find places and show how to get from one place to another. Maps even have little compasses on them to show which direction is which. Now, the Polynesians that navigated the Pacific Ocean did this a very long time ago, much before they had any maps of the world to help them. But we are lucky. We can use a map to help us see the voyages that these Polynesians took. Since this is a history class, you're all going to now act like historians. Here is a map. To think like historians, when looking at this map, we must ask ourselves questions like, what does it show? What evidence can I find? What does it tell me about the past? This map is titled Polynesian Voyaging Routes Across the Pacific. Looking at this map, Year 3, what can you see? What does it tell us about Polynesian voyages? So the first thing I notice when looking at the map is the wooden canoe in the middle of the map. This is what the Polynesians used to navigate the oceans. The next thing I then notice is all the different arrows pointing to the different islands. These are showing where the Polynesian explorers went and how they sailed between the islands. We can see that they started in Asia, up here, Taiwan, and they sailed to Samoa, Tonga, the Cook Islands, Tahiti, Easter Island. They even sailed to Hawaii, and they sailed to New Zealand. Now, all these islands make up the Polynesian Islands, and this ocean, which is the white, is the Pacific Ocean. Can anyone point to Australia for me? Thank you. Yes, there it is. What else do you guys notice about the map? How does the canoe look different from boats we have now? What do you think made these voyages hard for the Polynesians? Yes, correct. That's right. Remember, they didn't have any maps like this or any modern technology. They followed the stars and ocean swells. This is a very long journey to take. Across all these oceans to all these different islands, it's a very long journey to take without any technology and with any maps. Now, think about what you have learned so far, both with the new words you've learned and by looking at this map. Explain to me one thing you have learned about Polynesian voyages. Good, thank you. Yes, thank you. Good, I'm glad you guys are learning. What do you think, why do you think these voyages were such an amazing achievement? Correct, good. Yes, thank you, good job. We have learned about some new ideas and about who the Polynesians were and about their voyages across the Pacific Ocean. Now we're going to move on to the next part of the lesson, where we'll look more deeply at how they navigated on these journeys. In this part of the lesson, we're going to first watch this short video, to expand on what we know. And then we're going to investigate a different historical resource of the Polynesians. Finally, later on the lesson, we're going to compare Polynesian voyages with other significant voyages of history. Thank you.